Hello everyone and welcome to another Halloween Season review. Today I'm doing a review of Photosynthesis under the Moonlight. This is an expansion for Photosynthesis and the base game is needed to be able to play this game. And this is for 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and up, and adds 3 different kind of modules to this game, Photosynthesis. And really fun expansion. A lot of interesting new elements that they've added to the game. So let's go ahead and show you again. If you are unfamiliar with Photosynthesis, this is a game published by Blue Orange Games for 2 to 4 players, in which you are growing trees, planting trees, and harvesting trees to get victory points along the board. And you would normally get, a certain amount of sunlight points depending on how big your tree is and its location. And you're going to utilize those points to further expand, plant trees, seeds, and grow those seeds into larger trees to harvest them in areas for more and more points. So photosynthesis, what does photosynthesis add to this game? It adds animals, which is really cool. And it adds a moon and this great elder tree as well. So what's going to come in the box? All sorts of good stuff here. There are lots of different animals to choose from. We have 8 different animals, and I'll show you what those are and kind of what they add, what elements they add to the game. There's also this great elder tree, which is on the board. This is a game still in the first round rotation here of the sun, but shows you some of the components here. So the great elder tree here, I'll cover this first because it's very simple. The great elder tree, when you play with this module, you do not have to play with the tree to play with the animals, and vice versa. You could just use the tree, whatnot. But basically what this is it's going to take up a spot on the board, and it's an obstacle of sorts. The animals, which we're going to talk about, can't move into the space. It also blocks all the sunlight and moonlight in its respective rows when you're looking for lunar and solar points there. So that is the great elder tree. The other thing that this adds are the animals. So what kind of animals are in here and what do they add to the game? Well, let's start over here with the beaver here. Is really interesting. So all the animals are going to be collecting moonlight. So the animal boards that correspond with your animal is where you track the lunar points here. And all the animals are very different in their abilities, but they all collect moonlight the same. So let's go ahead and look at this new mechanic of the game here. So you can see here that there's actually 2 moons that are, look right here. We kind of have this reddish colored one, and we got kind of more traditional white moon here, right there. And it's interesting. So the sun here is going along clockwise around the board, like normal in photosynthesis. But the moon is moving the opposite direction along the board. And that's how we get moonlight. So let's go ahead and just look at the moon. This is our moon. It's currently half moon. And so it's double-sided. So it's a half moon or a full moon. When an animal is in the path, you'll see 2 arrows here. So it's going to highlight basically 2 rows. And if your animal on the board is in one of those rows, you're going to be able to collect lunar points. Okay, so when it's half moon, you get 1 lunar point, and when it's a full moon, you would get 2 lunar points. Okay, so if we look at this example right here, we actually have 2 animals. We have the hedgehog here, who is in this row, and we have the turtle there, and they would both get 2 lunar points. Now the squirrel here and the beaver, however, are not in those 2 rows, so they would not get any lunar points during that during the phase in which you collect solar and lunar points. Okay, so the other element that you can play in this game, you can choose to use these moonstones or not. In a 4-player game, if you're using the tree, you will include only one of these. But there are 3 moonstones that come in the game, in the expansion there. And what the moonstones do are very interesting. So let's say we had a moonstone here, and instead the beaver was here. So what happens here actually is the moonstones reflect the moonlight, right? So if the moonstone is in the path of the moon here, it's going to shimmer moonlight to all the adjacent spaces. So the beaver usually would not get moonlight because it's not in the row, but because it's next to the moonstone, it will be able to get 2 lunar points. Okay. So the moonstones, that's how that works. It's kind of interesting too, because the great elder tree right here, it will not move during the game. But in a scenario like this, the great elder tree does block moonlight. It blocks moonlight and sunlight for that entire row behind it. And normally though, like these other trees that come onto the board from the other players do not affect moonlight. It does not shadow. And so even if I'm behind one of these big trees, if this tree is right here, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the moonlight is in this row, it hits this, and it does that. That still works like normal. It is interesting though, the moonstones themselves are the size of a small tree, which is nice for reference, right? So these do cast shadows from the sunlight. So if this is here, it's blocking this tree here. It's not going to get any solar points from that location. Okay. So it's really interesting. There's this other token here you'll notice for the moon. It's a little bit smaller. It's also double-sided, but it has little dashed arrows to remind you that that is where the moon will be next. Okay. So this is going to move 5 spaces, spaces being spots in between. So it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the end of the round, this is going to come over here. And what happens is when the sun rotates and the moon, oops, there goes the great elder tree. The moon, when the moon passes, it goes to where it was. Now I don't remember where it was. Anyway, it goes there. It's going to go to what it was on. But because the moon is now passing the sun, we're going to flip the future moon token here. I guess we can get one. So I guess it's here. Okay. But now we know for the next round, we can look at the board and it's a very nice reference tool because now we know that it's a half moon right now and we can go and determine who's going to get lunar points there. But the moon will come here next and it will be a full moon in those 2 rows. Okay. So that's how you get the lunar points. Now, what do the animals do with those lunar points is very interesting. So very quickly, go through these. The animeeples here are so awesome. Very, very nice. I love that they were able to kind of add the printing on them. So they are really, really nice quality meeples here. So I really, really like the quality of the components is great. You know, the Moonstones and the Great Elder Tree, very similar setup and everything of the trees from the original Photosynthesis. And then we have these wonderful wooden meeples with the artwork on them for all 8 animals. Each animal has this board, and then there's 4 little moon tokens to track the lunar points. and just really, really great quality stuff there. Okay, so what do they do? So a lot of variety. They're either going to help grow things or move seeds. So with the Beaver, it's pretty cool. You actually have this dam that you can build. So for 6 lunar points, I can go ahead and build this. It has to be next to the river, so it can't be along the beach over there. But I can plant this somewhere along the river here to build a dam. Now what's interesting is when I build this, it's automatically going to increase the size of the trees if the player or players have that size tree available. So for this, and it has to be built along the river like this, so I can't like make a 2-leaf somewhere else, right? But if the Beaver was the green player here and they had 3 trees, they could plant this here, okay? And as long as I had them available in my supply, not on the board, but available, I could upgrade these 2 smalls to 2 medium trees, and I could upgrade this medium tree to a large tree. Boom, huge move. 6 points to do it. What's interesting though is you have to have them available, which is very kind of crucial for that. So that's a big move to be able to grow 3 trees. But you have to keep in mind that you're gonna have to spend a bunch of points to get there, right? You're gonna have to, they have 1 medium tree right now. Well, they would need to spend 3, or is it, yeah, 3 to get another medium tree, and 4. They'd have to spend 7 to purchase these and have them in the supply. But if I built the dam there, oh man, what a power move. So these trees would go back to the supply as long as there's space. If there's not, they get put in the box. But that would grow those trees all one size. Really cool, right? And the Beaver here, if it's on one of the spaces with one of the trees on the dam, it can spend 5 lunar points to do that on that space. So it could grow this medium tree, as long as I have a medium or a large tree in my supply, to a large tree. That's not a large tree, that's a large tree. Okay, so the Beaver, he builds the dam and then he can use that to really build up these spaces around that river on his dam very quickly with the additional lunar points that he's going to get from round to round. Very cool, right? The turtle, very, very interesting. So at the beginning of the game, there's a bunch of these tokens. I think there's 10, if 8 tokens. And they're going to be shuffled up, and they get placed along the beach at the beginning of the game here, and face down. So you don't know exactly what they are. But in the game, when the turtle is on one of those locations, the beach locations, they're able to spend 4 lunar points to hatch a little turtle. Very cool. So what do the turtles do? In the future, the turtle can then spend 1 lunar point to do one of these actions. Now, it's important to say for any of the animals, some of them have a couple different they can only do one ability, they can do an ability once per turn. But the turtle has 2 different abilities, right? He can hatch an egg, or as the baby's first steps, he can use one of these. But if he has 4, he can't use all 4 on the same turn. Even if he has 4 points, spend one, he can only do one of these per turn. But these do all sorts of cool different things, either getting seeds or getting trees from the supply for free. Normally you can only upgrade a tree once. You can't upgrade it twice in one turn. This lets you do that. So the turtle goes around, hatches its little baby turtles, and then uses some cool powers there. In this game, we were also playing with the squirrel. Oh, the squirrel comes and he has the ability to eat seeds. If someone places a seed on the board, the squirrel, instead of just moving once per turn, the squirrel has an ability that it can move 2 times on the board each turn. And so it makes him a threat. He's a very, very hungry squirrel, can't you tell? And so it can eat opponent's seeds. So if we have an opponent's seed right here, and he comes and he's able to spend the appropriate number of lunar points, he can eat seeds and send it back to other players' boards, and he gets a light bonus from that. So from a 1-leaf place, if someone has a seed on a 1-leaf location, he could spend 5 to eat that seed. Now it becomes more expensive for the squirrel to eat the seed. So the 4th level in the middle, if we didn't have the great elder tree right there, if the seed was there, they would have to spend 8 lunar points to do that. So it gets more, expensive as it goes on. But what happens is this goes back to the opponent's player board. If there's not a spot, it goes in the box, or else it would come back to there. The opponent gets 1 light point as kind of compensation for getting their seed eaten. But the squirrel gets light points according to the number of leaves. So that was a 4 space. So the squirrel here would go ahead and get 4 light points there. Okay. So the squirrel's running around. Everyone's kind of scared of the seeds getting eaten. So you kind of have to be careful. Sometimes you use your little animals as protection, because on your turn, you can move your animal once, unless you're the squirrel, and you can move twice. But what happens is you cannot move into the location of an elder tree or a moonstone, and you cannot move into a space with another animal. So that was kind of interesting. People were planting seeds and using their animals to kind of protect them from the squirrel so that they could get them established. Okay, so it was kind of interesting there. The hedgehog, very cool ability here. For 3 points, the hedgehog can, in an open location, spend 3 lunar points to take a seed from their board, directly from their board, and put it in that location. Very cool, very powerful, as the hedgehog could be far away from your other trees, and you can still use that ability. Plus it takes it directly from the board, so you're not have to spend points to get seeds. Really cool. The hedgehog can also spend 1 lunar point to move 1 additional space. Okay. What other animals are there? Quickly show you some of these others. The owl is very, very simple, not real complex here. It's going to move around the board, trying to collect as much lunar points as possible, because the owl can turn lunar points into light points. Now, it shows here on the board, if you spend 5 lunar points, you can get 3 light points for that. Or if you're able to spend 9 lunar points, you'll get 7 light points. And if you spend 12 lunar points, you'll get 10 light points. Huge, huge. The fox is interesting. You're actually trying to remember here. Oh, so you're moving around the fox. You're able to move seeds around. The badger helps grow trees. He can help grow trees in certain locations and grow like a seed into a small tree. Or if you're using the more powerful ability, you can actually move that or grow the small seed into a small tree directly from the board with that leveled up. Or you can, if you have a small tree in your supply, use 4 points to do that. The warthog here can actually, what was that one? It moves things around, I think, as well. But let's open up. I'll show you the rule book. In closing here, the rules, I think, do a great job explaining the new set of mechanics. and again, how the mechanics kind of all go hand in hand if you want to play with all the different modes here. But let's go ahead and remind. So the fox, you can move other players' animals, that's right, or their seeds, or you can steal lunar points. Very, very cool there. The boar is what they call it, not the warhog. The boar can collect trees. So usually you have to spend 4 light points to harvest or collect one of those trees. And in this one, you can collect a large tree on the space it is placed on without spending light points to do that. Now, if you use the upgraded ability, you can actually collect the tree from the board, and you can place a seed into that location, but it has to be from your available area, not board. But yeah, it allows you to collect those. So some very, very cool player abilities. The instructions do a great job. The end of game scoring, the only thing that really changes end of game scoring is your leftover lunar points. Okay, so you'll score 1 point for each leftover lunar point that you have on your board. And the turtle, one of his, let's see here, yeah, this one. One of the turtles, if he hatches this turtle, it's actually 3 points at the end of the game as well. So that is photosynthesis. Adds that tree, which is just a big obstacle, adds this moon element where the animals here get that lunar points, and they're able to use that for abilities that are all unique to those animals, which is really cool. And then you can play with these moonstones, which makes it a little bit easier for those the moonlight to reach the animals and get more points. But it also takes up a space, doesn't move, another obstacle on the board. And it counts as a tree for the sunlight, so a small tree, so it casts a shadow of 1 space for each of those as well. But a lot. This expansion really adds a lot to the game, a lot of variability with 8 different animals that you can play with. The component quality, again, is really, really great. Some of these have additional components like those turtles, or we have the beaver with this dam tile right there. And the animal meeples are just really, really great for this as well. So great quality expansion, adds a lot of different things going on. You know, for some, this might be a little too much for that, but you know, playing with the kids, they really enjoyed the animals and that aspect. You know, going around being able to eat people's seeds, or going around and hatching these cute turtles with different abilities. It makes it really feel kind of different, right? But it adds another layer of complexity, some things you have to worry about as far as, you know, moving around the moon, and you're counting solar points, light points now, and lunar points. So it definitely adds some complexity to it. The gameplay, game length is going to extend a little bit now for that. The add, you know, maybe another 15, 20 minutes to gameplay. But really great expansion from Blue Orange Games for Photosynthesis, which in itself is a fantastic game. Highly recommend it. Really fun to have grow your forest and your trees and all of that. But this is really, really cool with all these unique player abilities with the animals, running around, making sure you get sunlight, and, you know, building dams, hatching turtles, stealing seeds, all sorts of really fun things that add to the game. So highly recommend that, and that is how Lou sees it.